Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more overly sarcastic productions. This time, back with some more trope talk. This time, a short one, though. We are not so different, you and I. I think this one is very popular. This one's very popular in shonen anime. Naruto being the most easy to point to. And then they try to do it in Batman v Superman. Martha! Before we dive in, though, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. All right. I've got nothing really else to add here. I don't... I feel like this one, it's... In a way, everyone uses this trope because it's a way of... Really, it's a good way of kind of showing unnecessary, like the conflict as being unnecessary in a way. And of course, if done right, it will come across as satisfying and cathartic, I think would be the right term to use here for it. However, that is also hard to do just because it's been done so much. I think I couldn't really think of some good examples, but I can't really think of any. I can only really think of the bad examples like Batman v Superman, Martha, or shonen anime, which that's kind of the point of characters like Naruto, is the whole we're not so different kind of stuff, the talk no jutsu. But yeah, let's go ahead and hear what Red has to say. Fuck, that was
Hey,
not.
quick, the hero and the big bad are dueling. The bad guy's running
Yes.
up to say something devastating. What's he gonna tell our
Monologue.
hero? We're not so different, you and I. Exactly. Now, did you cringe as soon as I said that? I know I did, and here's why. It's because whenever that line gets dropped, it's either completely untrue or totally glossed over. In fact, it's so overused and poorly used that it's almost completely lost its impact. The instance that bothers me the most is
I will agree with that. That's one of the things that kind of it's really impactful the first couple times Naruto does it, like when he does it to like the way he connects it with Zabuza and Haku in the first arc. I'll consider that the Land of Waves as the first arc, although I think the training arc is kind of technically the first one, the Bell Test, whatever. The Land of Waves arc, when that one happens, I really like that. Because it also builds on Sasuke and Naruto's friendship and how they're like willing to fucking die for each other already. And then when he does it with Gaara, when meeting Gaara, that one also pretty impactful. And then of course at least the constant of it with Sasuke throughout the series, I think works. But really after the first three, excluding Sasuke, I kind of stopped. I kind of just started like going, okay, yeah, all right, you know.
is when the villain is 110% talking out of his ass. Usually this is when the villain's just messing with the hero or trying to get under his skin, which is smart, but annoying because the hero always takes him seriously. No dude, just because you have a backstory element in common doesn't make you like the guy who murders for fun. Now why is this annoying? Because the hero's being stupid, and that's always annoying. Now it'd be one thing if the hero actually thought this stuff through and realized he was acting like the villain, but instead you get the hero throwing a tantrum until their friends remind them of the obvious. It's weak. Now I can see why this gets used, because if you want to throw the hero off balance, comparing them to their nemesis is a good place to start. But in a sense, it's empty because it's blatantly not true. Sure, you could have the hero afraid of turning into the villain and reacting because of that, but more often than not, it's played like the thought of having anything in common with the bad guy is breakdown worthy. Not to mention, if you got a bad guy smart and sadistic enough to torment the hero with the prospect of being just like him, wouldn't it make sense for him to draw on the hero's actual weak points? Because this is never played for real trauma. The hero will end up brushing it off as quickly as they accepted it in the first place. Look, it always goes like this. We're not so different, you and I. No! No, you're not. I'm all better now. If the villain wants to mess with the hero, this is the dumbest way to do it, which is why the trope is
I have a feeling Red doesn't like this trope.
much less annoying when the villain actually is telling the truth. See, there's a lot that can be done with a hero and a villain that mirror each other. Not only are there foils for each other, but when the villain's calling the hero out like this, it means the villain is introspective, and the hero usually isn't. And that's interesting. Self-aware villains are interesting. And in this case, you got a couple choices. Do you make the hero self-aware too? Let's pull up an example real quick from one of my favorite animes, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Now, pretty early on in the series, spoilers, skip ahead like a minute and a half if you care about those things. So early on in the series, there's this alchemist named Shao Tucker, who does some very shady stuff with human transmutation. The two main characters befriend Tucker's daughter, Nina, and her dog, Alexander. Now, Tucker became a state alchemist when he managed to make a talking chimera, and coincidentally, his estranged wife mysteriously vanished around the same time. Fill in the blanks from there. Now he's in danger of losing his state license and the money that came with it if he doesn't do something equally spectacular. Long story short, Tucker alchemically fuses his daughter with her dog, producing a genuinely horrifying and heart-wrenching creature that can't move without pain but clearly remembers and loves its father in spite of what he's done to it. Now, Ed, the protagonist, completely and understandably flips his shit once he realizes what Shao Tucker has done, but Tucker points out that Ed's not much better. See, in their backstory, Ed and his brother Al previously tried to use alchemy to bring their mother back to life, which predictably went horribly wrong because alchemy's not meant to be used that way, and it cost Ed 2 limbs and Al his whole body. They're both racked with guilt over what they did, and as soon as Tucker plays his not-so-different card, Ed goes ballistic, because, you know, even though what Tucker did is worlds worse, they did both abuse and misuse alchemy for personal reasons, and they both maimed their loved ones in the process. In this case, the villain shows how thin the line is between him and the hero, and it hits the hero hard.
Every time she talks about Full Metal Alchemist, it makes me want to watch it, but then I never do. I really have to. I really should.
Because it's true. Okay, spoilers done. Basically, when the villain's right, it can mess up the hero for ages, and because the hero's seeing basically what they could be if they went too far, that's super effective. But you know what can be more effective? Having the hero figure that out themselves. Because sure, introspective villains are great, but if you really want to explore your hero, it might do to have them figure something out for a change. So here's an example of that kind of characterization. I've mentioned before in the Q&A how when I was a kid, I watched this show called Reboot. Well, a few months back, I decided to rewatch it to see if it held up, and it mostly did, except for the earlier animation. But I was genuinely surprised at how they characterized the protagonist in Season 3, because they did this thing that I hadn't really seen anywhere else. See, this protagonist had been a kid for the first 2 seasons, and spent the first 3 episodes of Season 3 basically having to step into the role of protector for his entire system, a role that had been previously filled by his childhood hero, who's MIA and presumed dead for most of Season 3. So he's protecting the system against the series' main villain, who is so much bigger and stronger than him, and just doesn't have to care when he tries to fight him. Then the kid ends up getting stuck in a year outside, 10 years inside situation, and grows up in the space between 2 episodes into a full-fledged adult. And he's a jerk now. He's angry and brooding and absurdly strong, and he's nothing like the hero he idolized as a child, the hero he wanted to be. He's become like the villain he had to fight because that villain was powerful and his hero lost. And he recognizes this by himself. He has entire episodes where he argues with himself over whether the sacrifice was worth it. And in the end, he realizes that not only would his hero probably hate him now, his own childhood self would be afraid of him.
What would Bob think of you now? What could... What would Bob think? I'm sorry, I can't take it seriously when you have a name just like fucking Bob.
But how? You're me.
But you hate me. You must. Look at what you've become.
He's become too much like the monster that made his childhood hell, so he works against it. Now, the other interesting thing here is how the villain responds, because during their final showdown, the villain refuses to acknowledge their similarities. He still thinks that this guy is a scared child, no matter how strong he gets. But when it gets right down to the wire and the hero's got him at his mercy, the villain is almost fearful. He clings to the fact that, no, he can't do this. It'd go against everything he stood for. He can't have become that much like him, because that thought terrifies him. And in the end, the hero agrees, and it's a really good moment. But the bottom line is, a character who up until this point had been okay at best, suddenly becomes this intensely interesting and tragic character study, an object lesson about he who fights monsters. But he's not a tragic figure because he pulls himself out of that. And you know what? His whole personal journey would have been way weaker if someone had straight up told him he was turning into the bad guy. Having him realize that himself gave him an unprecedented degree of depth. And that's one of the ways that not invoking this trope can be more powerful than invoking it. Sure, making characters similar is good, making them acknowledge it is good, but an externally prompted revelation isn't necessarily better than an internal one. And I think part of this ties into the hero's journey, weirdly enough. See, in so many stories, the hero just kind of gets dragged along by circumstance. Sure, they might have a motivation or two, but the only things that can make them deviate from those motivations tend to be external. The hero gets pulled from their home, gets pulled into an adventure, gets pulled into their destiny. Even their motivation tends to be pulling them. Why are you doing this? My girlfriend got kidnapped. And if she didn't, well, I'd probably still be a farmer. There's no internal motivation to do anything. It's all external circumstance forcing.
Why to improve magical destiny, severe trauma, kidnapped loved one, Thrown into alien situation. Must get stronger. My friends need me. I have to protect blank. I have nemesis. Not a reason. Self-improvement.
The character to act, and in a way that feels a little more realistic, but it's not. That's not how people work. People have internal.
Why are you doing push-ups? I like to be able to lift things. I mean, good enough reason for me. That's what I do it. It's strangely, it's therapeutic. It feels good. Lift big circle, put big circle down. Great.
Drive to do things, and in stories that's so often ignored. And with more modern flawed characters, they're
I hurt the people I'm close to. You wanna try and fix that? Never.
rarely actually expected to want to improve on their flaws. The characters
I'm a grumpy alcoholic asshole with deep-seated issues. Want help working through that? No. It's part of my charm.
static. They don't work through trauma or repair personality issues, they just are. Character development seems to have largely gone out the window. There's no drive, no reason for them to do anything unless the plot demands it. Having a character figure something out about themselves.
Oh no. I have problems. Me on a random Tuesday when I was 14 years old and I realized I had depression.
And work to fix it without external prompting is nearly revolutionary, and therefore might carry more weight. It's easy to throw a plot twist and drop a character into a situation that prompts them to change in one way or another, but having a character change on their own is harder and therefore rarer. And one of the reasons why Not So Different feels so weak is because it's structured like a plot twist, but it's way too predictable. If two characters are similar, you can probably tell. Having one point that out to the other and the other respond with shock feels contrived, even if it's in character for them to not have figured it out. It's a good literary trick being executed in the least effective way possible. It's also worth noting that the Not So Different trope isn't always a villain messing with the hero. Sometimes it's the hero appealing to the villain, or even just two
Naruto.
disparate characters realizing their similarities. See, that instance of the trope is used to make two characters closer, because that's how real-world friendships work. And that version's not annoying because it goes somewhere. In its most common instance, this trope is nothing but a waste of time, but in this case, it leads to character growth and relationship development, and therefore can actually be useful. But the villain-to-hero version doesn't go anywhere in most cases. It's just there for momentary.
I see what So it took a while to get to it, to stay to words, to talk about, my issue. I feel like maybe she should have said this at the beginning, maybe start with the hero versus villain works great. The hero doing this to the villain works great. Character development. My issue, villain to hero saying. I think these few seconds here should have been maybe at the beginning.
Shock value, and it doesn't even shock the audience. So in its most common instance, this trope is nothing but a waste of time. It can be done right, but it so rarely is. So yeah. This trope.
And that was Trope Talk, We're Not So Different, You and I, by Overly Sarcastic Productions. Really got nothing to add here at the end. This trope is just, yeah. I really got nothing to add here. I don't know what to add to this. But yeah, good video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.